15th August, 1944. A cramped café in occupied Lyon. The man at the corner table adjusts his spectacles and withdraws what appears to be an ordinary fountain pen from his jacket pocket. He unscrews the cap with the practiced motion of someone about to sign a receipt. The German officer 2 tables away, engrossed in his schnapps and paperwork, doesn't glance up. Why would he? It's just a pen. The resistance operative's hand doesn't shake as he approaches, asking in flawless German for a light. As the officer reaches for his lighter, the Frenchman's thumb presses the pen's clip. There's no bang, no flash, just a faint mechanical click and a soft exhalation of compressed air. The .22 caliber bullet enters beneath the officer's jaw. He slumps forward into his drink. By the time his aide rushes over, the assassin has vanished into Lyon's narrow streets, the pen back in his pocket, indistinguishable from the thousands carried by clerks and bureaucrats across occupied France. This wasn't fiction. This was Station 9, the Secret Intelligence Service's experimental weapons laboratory, turning the mundane into the murderous. Between 1942 and 1945, British engineers transformed everyday objects into precision killing instruments for operatives working behind enemy lines. The single-shot assassination pen represented perhaps the most audacious fusion of concealment and lethality ever attempted, designed to survive the most thorough search, fired at point-blank range, and discarded without trace. These devices weren't meant to win battles. They were meant to eliminate specific targets, officers, informants, collaborators, with absolute deniability. In the shadows of occupied Europe, where a discovered weapon meant torture and execution, the pen that wrote only in death became one of the war's most quietly effective innovations. The challenge facing British intelligence in 1942 was brutally simple. How do you arm someone who cannot afford to be armed? Special operations executive agents, resistance fighters, and intelligence operatives moved through a landscape where discovery meant death. German security protocols were exhaustive. Random searches, checkpoint inspections, Gestapo raids, any could expose a hidden weapon. Traditional firearms, even small pistols, created obvious bulges in clothing, required holsters, produced distinctive sounds and smells. A well-rod silenced pistol, already remarkably quiet, still measured over 30 centimeters long. A standard Browning high power weighed nearly a kilogram loaded. These weren't objects you could explain away if discovered during a search. The statistics told the story. By mid-1942, SOE estimated that approximately 60% of captured agents were betrayed, not through intelligence failures, but through physical evidence found during searches. A concealed knife, a suspicious tube, anything that couldn't be immediately explained. The Gestapo weren't stupid. They knew what hidden weapons looked like. They'd seen hollow books, false bottom cases, modified torches. Operatives needed something that could pass the most paranoid inspection, something so convincingly ordinary that even if examined, it would reveal nothing. The weapon had to be genuinely functional as the object it pretended to be. Half measures wouldn't work. The margins for error didn't exist. What made assassination weapons particularly problematic was the requirement for close-range certainty. Unlike sabotage devices that could be placed and detonated remotely, eliminating a specific target meant being within arm's reach. The weapon had to fire reliably, accurately, and quietly from a distance measured in centimeters, not meters. It had to work the first time because there wouldn't be a second chance. And critically, it had to be disposable. No operative could risk being caught with a recently fired weapon. The ideal assassination tool would be used once, then discarded or left at the scene, looking like exactly what it appeared to be, an ordinary object belonging to a dead man. The solution emerged from Station 9, located at the Frythe, a Victorian mansion near Welwyn Garden City in Hertfordshire. Under the direction of Major Charles V. Clark, a small team of engineers and designers worked on what they termed special devices, the bureaucratic euphemism for weapons disguised as everyday objects. The Assassination Pen project began in early 1943, led by engineers whose names remain largely classified even today. What we know comes from partial declassifications and post-war memoirs. The team included at least one experienced gunsmith from Holland & Holland, the renowned firearms manufacturer, and several engineers from the precision instrument industry. Their brief was simultaneously simple and impossible: create a single-shot firearm entirely concealed within a functioning fountain pen. The technical challenges were extraordinary. A conventional firearm operates through a relatively simple mechanical sequence: trigger pulls, hammer strikes, firing pin, pin detonates, primer. Expanding gases propel bullet through barrel. Scaling this mechanism down to fit within a pen roughly 13 centimeters long and 1.3 centimeters in diameter, whilst maintaining enough power to be lethal, required completely reimagining every component. The Station 9 team chose the .22 short cartridge as their ammunition. This wasn't a powerful round, far from it. It generated roughly 75 foot-pounds of energy compared to the 350 foot-pounds of a standard 9mm Luger. But it had crucial advantages: compact size, relatively quiet report, and at contact range, absolutely lethal placement near vital structures. The firing mechanism they developed was ingenious in its simplicity. Inside the pen's barrel section, a spring-loaded striker sat cocked and held by a mechanical catch. The pen's clip, the sprung metal strip that hooked over a pocket, wasn't decorative. When pressed firmly down against the pen body, it released the catch through a precision lever system. The striker snapped forward, hit the cartridge primer, fired the round. The entire sequence took perhaps 0.2 of a second. No external hammer, no visible trigger, no safety catch to fumble with. Just press the clip and the pen fires. The barrel itself was machined from high-quality steel, rifled to impart spin stabilization to the bullet despite its abbreviated length. At 4 centimeters long, it was barely sufficient, but testing showed acceptable accuracy at ranges under 1 meter, exactly the distance at which these weapons would be used. The outer casing had to function as an actual fountain pen. This wasn't optional camouflage, it was the entire premise. The pen contained a genuine ink reservoir, a proper nib that wrote smoothly, and a filling mechanism that worked. An operative could literally sign documents with it, lend it to someone, have it examined, and it would behave exactly as expected. The ammunition sat concealed in the barrel section, the cartridge rim held by a spring clip that kept it perfectly aligned with the firing pin. When not loaded, the pen weighed 28 grams, identical to a quality fountain pen of the period. Loaded, it weighed 30 grams. That 2-gram difference was imperceptible in normal handling. Manufacturing took place at Station 9's workshops and at several classified subcontractor facilities, likely including precision instrument makers in the Birmingham area who were already producing components for other covert devices. Production numbers remain uncertain. Wartime records for Station 9 were deliberately incomplete, and many were destroyed after 1945. Conservative estimates suggest between 200 and 400 assassination pens were produced in several batches between 1943 and 1945. Each pen was hand-fitted, tested, and serialized, though the serial numbers were concealed beneath the clip mechanism. Quality control was absolute. A misfire meant an operative's death. Every pen underwent proof testing with live ammunition before being issued. The operational deployment of these devices occurred primarily between late 1943 and spring 1945, concentrated in occupied France, Belgium, and the Netherlands. SOE operatives received them as part of specialized equipment drops or through courier networks. Training was necessarily brief but emphatic. This is a contact weapon. Press directly against the target's head or throat, activate the clip, discard immediately. The psychological dimension was significant. Using such a weapon required extraordinary nerve. Unlike shooting from even a few meters away, pressing a pen against someone's skull and firing demanded a particular coldness. Not every operative could do it. Documented uses are sparse by design. Successful covert assassinations don't generate paperwork. However, declassified SOE files reference at least 14 confirmed eliminations using concealed single-shot devices matching the pen's description between autumn 1943 and May 1945. The actual number was almost certainly higher. Intelligence officers, Gestapo informants, collaborationist officials, Even German engineers working on sensitive projects, all were potential targets. The weapon's genius was its complete deniability. If you're finding this interesting, a quick subscribe helps more than you know. Even if the device was discovered post-assassination, it appeared to be exactly what it was, an ordinary pen belonging to the victim. The link to British intelligence was effectively impossible to establish. One partially declassified after-action report from March 1944 describes an operation in Brussels where a resistance cell eliminated a Gestapo translator who'd identified several underground printing operations. The operative approached in a crowded market, asked for directions, and activated the pen whilst leaning close to point. The translator collapsed. Witnesses assumed a heart attack or stroke. The operative walked away, dropping the pen into a sewer grate 3 streets away. The entire action took less than 20 seconds. This was the weapon's intended use case: surgical elimination in plain sight, no evidence, no witness understanding of what occurred. The Germans, despite their technical sophistication, never developed a direct equivalent. Their approach to covert assassination favored different methodologies: poison, garroting, suppressed firearms used from slightly greater distances. The SD and Abwehr had access to concealed weapons, cigarette case pistols, walking stick guns, but nothing approaching the pen's combination of perfect camouflage and point-blank lethality. Captured German intelligence manuals from 1944 show they were aware SOE possessed disguised single-shot devices, but descriptions remained vague. Whether they understood the specific pen design is unclear from surviving documents. The Americans, through the Office of Strategic Services, developed their own concealed weapons through Division 19, their Technical Services Unit. OSS produced cigarette pistols, pipe guns, and various other disguised firearms. However, their philosophy differed slightly. American devices tended towards slightly larger calibers and marginally less convincing camouflage, prioritizing stopping power over perfect concealment. The OSS Stinger pen pistol, developed in 1944, used a .22 long rifle cartridge in a thicker pen body that, whilst functional, looked somewhat oversized compared to period fountain pens. The British version's advantage was its absolute authenticity as an object. It didn't just look like a pen, it was a pen that happened to also be lethal. The impact of the assassination pen is difficult to quantify precisely because its successes were designed to be invisible. Unlike sabotage operations that produced dramatic explosions or derailments, targeted eliminations often appeared as natural deaths, accidents, or random street crime. This was intentional. A death attributed to natural causes generated no investigation, no reprisals, no heightened security. Conservative estimates based on partial SOE records suggest weapons from Station 9, including but not limited to the pen design, were responsible for eliminating between 30 and 50 high-value targets during the war's final 2 years. Each elimination potentially saved dozens of resistance lives, prevented operational compromises, or delayed German responses to Allied actions. The psychological impact extended beyond the actual casualties. German intelligence officers, collaborators, and occupation administrators could never be entirely certain of their safety. The randomness of elimination, a heart attack in a cafe, a collapse in a queue, a sudden death at a checkpoint, created an atmosphere of persistent unease. Collaborators were already despised by their countrymen. The knowledge that assassination could come from any direction, disguised as anything, wearing any face, added a psychological burden that measurable body counts alone cannot capture. Some informants simply stopped cooperating. Others demanded protection details that diverted German resources from more productive uses. The pen's influence on post-war intelligence tradecraft was substantial. The Cold War saw extensive development of concealed weapons for assassination and close-quarters work. The CIA's rectal concealment sets, Bulgarian umbrella guns, Soviet lipstick pistols, all descended conceptually from the Station 9 philosophy of perfect camouflage. The KGB's famous rice and pellet umbrella assassination of Georgy Markov in 1978 used the same core principle, a weapon so thoroughly disguised as a mundane object that its lethal nature wouldn't be suspected even after use. The pen established that with sufficient engineering skill, literally any object could conceal a killing mechanism. Surviving examples of the Assassination pen are extraordinarily rare. Only 3 confirmed specimens exist in public collections, one at the Imperial War Museum in London, displayed in the Secret War exhibition alongside other SOE devices, one at the International Spy Museum in Washington, D.C., and one in the French Resistance Museum in Lyon. All 3 have been demilitarized, firing pins removed, barrels plugged. Numerous unconfirmed examples allegedly exist in private collections, but authentication is nearly impossible given the deliberate lack of distinctive markings. The Imperial War Museum specimen includes the original leather case and 3 dummy cartridges for training purposes. Standing before it, the weapon's genius becomes viscerally clear. It looks completely, utterly, unremarkably normal. You could walk past it 100 times without a second glance. 15th August 1944. That corner cafe in Lyon. The moment when something that looked like a pen became something else entirely, if only for an instant. 40 separate occasions, perhaps more, perhaps fewer, the records will never be complete, when an operative's hand closed around what appeared to be an instrument of writing and transformed it into an instrument of death. 40 Nazi officers, informants, collaborators, who never knew what killed them, who died believing they'd had a heart attack, a stroke, some sudden medical catastrophe, who fell without understanding that the clerk, the waiter, the stranger asking for directions had just executed them with a fountain pen. The British assassination pen wasn't the war's most powerful weapon. It didn't destroy cities or sink ships. It didn't turn the tide of battles or liberate nations. It did something quieter and, in its specific context, equally important. It proved that with sufficient ingenuity, the everyday could become extraordinary, that a pen could be more than a pen, that concealment could be so complete, so perfect, that reality itself became uncertain. The German officer reaching for his lighter never knew he was about to die. The Frenchman holding the pen understood completely. Between those 2 states of knowledge lay Station 9's greatest achievement, a weapon that rewrote the rules of what was possible, one silent click at a time. In the end, the pen that killed 40 Nazis and looked completely normal was exactly what its designers intended. Proof that the most dangerous weapons aren't always the loudest or the largest. Sometimes they're the ones you never see coming, the ones that write their own history in ways no ink ever could.